Hello, my name is Fraser Simons. This is my channel, Springboard Thought. Today I want to do a quick standalone review of The Virgin Suicide by Jeffrey Eugenides. This is my first book by him. The book, I think, cannot really be spoiled in virtue of the first line. On the morning the last Lisbon daughter took her turn at suicide, it was Mary this time, and sleeping pills like Therese. The two paramedics arrived at the house knowing exactly where the knife drawer was, and the gas oven, and the beam in the basement from which it was possible to tie a rope. So you would think that that would relieve some of the anxiety or tension, but actually it does the opposite, at least for me. I was always waiting for a gotcha moment or a trick or play on words or something like that to occur, and perhaps there is. I won't tell you either way. But yeah, there is a growing of tension that eventually snaps with generally each plot event that occurs in this book. And it masterfully, I think, pulls it very taut. The girls themselves, I think, are very fascinating in the sense that the fascination of the choir of boys, the we of the group, that are using the girls as a subject in their narration, are very good at transposing their emotions onto the reader. They're very good at being evocative, quintessential, nostalgic, evoking a lot of maybe cultural touchstones almost, or creating them throughout it in order to hook the reader into this sort of troubling, disturbing narrative that has left an indelible mark on the boys themselves, the community, the parents, that it really has marked everything to the degree that we can believe the choir of boys because they're quite an unreliable narrator, and they freely admit it from time to time. They'll go into certain sections saying, nobody actually knows this, but so-and-so once heard such and such story corroborated by this one, or not corroborated, and you have to choose what to believe, basically. But this is sort of the story as we can cobble it together. There's direct quotations from sort of mock interviews of parents, including the girls' parents as well. And then there's just sort of the lived testimony of their emotions and memories, which, given how this sort of thing colors memory and trauma as well does, again, it's unreliable, but that sort of unknowability is intrinsic to the qualities of the story, I think, which is ironic because the prose work makes to counteract that. Every small, like, sight, sound, smell, everything is used to sort of buttress their lies, essentially, to make you think that they have like a almost like eidetic memory, or have created something so comprehensive in the collective we that it is the truth, when of course it isn't. Another mark for it, I think, is its capture of adolescent boys, in which they project much of themselves onto the objects of their desire. The women, though one or two are slightly complex, I think, mostly retain the properties of any given boy that is lusting after them at any given time. When they do expressly communicate with the boys, it is in sort of like men are from Mars and women are from Venus kind of way. Sometimes they can meet in a sort of medium and express themselves in sort of abstractions maybe, but there's no clear communication ever happening in this book. Even when the girls, one in particular, uses their body to communicate, it's a sort of desperate act of communication that doesn't seem to actually provoke emotion or what the act should provoke, basically, for these people participating in it. And so there's a lot of heartbreak, essentially, to this book. There's a lot of sadness, but I think it also is like a pretty clear indictment of the boys themselves, who witness much more than anybody else in the neighborhood because they are putting their gaze on these girls and watching them sort of spiral down into a sort of limbo. They don't know how to nourish these girls, just as the parents don't appear to, as the community doesn't appear to or care to, nor does the country. There's an abstraction from the house to the nuclear family to capitalism to the constructs of our society itself, especially gender-wise. Societal norms are, I think, very harmful to the girls, and when they sort of supersede these notions, usually by making their mark with nature, usually like trees, and I think there's like a giant elm or something like that in the front yard, and other natural imagery that parallels the girls, which I think again marks the whole notion of man's unknowability towards nature, not understanding it, especially under capitalism, where we try to form ideas about taking care of nature. They become notions that are more destructive usually than what preceded it. For instance, clear-cutting forests, people were like, great, we'll switch to server farms and the internet. And now those same server farms are so huge and massive and draining that they actually are more harmful to the environment and put out more emissions than clear cutting did. So there's just sort of the incompetence of capitalism embodied in these boys themselves, as well as the parents, who are wildly incompetent towards their girls. The authoritative sort of regime that they put themselves under, put the girls under rather, and I suppose themselves, though we don't get that much information about the relationship generally, is, I think, very indicative of, you know, how the country is run as well. And so their inability to be nourished sort of draws parallels for me as like Dryads or nymphs of folkloric type stuff with trees. And so when the tree is cut down, the spirit that is akin to it dies as well, right? And just like all these symbols in nature that capitalism is destroying, killing, etc., so too do these girls seem to be going with it. And again, the boys have no idea what to do about this except for this predilection to project their own fascination, desire, and hopes onto these girls that need help, not, you know, these boys to be into them, basically. So I thought it was excellent. Again, the prose work is just really great. The works with imagery, the clear, concise work of the sentence and paragraph structure. Sometimes there's like an intentionally sort of odd sentence, even in the first sentence there, where it kind of stops for a little bit and then picks up with an em dash and then continues on with the paramedic point of view, when it should ostensibly move throughout with creating like good flow. It stops, stymies itself, catches your attention, and then continues. A lot of that kind of stuff happens. It's fantastic stuff, I think. It's a very well-crafted book that has a lot to communicate. Interestingly, I remember in a later part in the book, the father at home is talking about Marxism, I believe, like communism. And I wonder if that wasn't something that goes into in the beginning of the book, i.e. is the authoritative regime in the house that the parents are propagating meant to be a socialist critique or a capitalistic one, because both are mentioned, and so maybe it is just more a abstract form of authoritative / fascist regimes, regardless of the mode of modus operandi, I guess, will still harm the people that it's under regardless, you know? Their connection to the world denied. They deny others their life, I guess, and themselves. It's very rich and interesting to think about, and I'm sure I'll be thinking about it for some time. If you've read the book, I'd love to hear what you think of it. If you think I got anything wrong or missed some symbolism or some commentary, I'd love to know what I had missed. And otherwise, I will see you next video. Thank you.